Welcome to Go on Shaw TV. I'm Sarah MacArthur, and this is Lynn Johnston. You may recognize her work for Better for Worse. I think it's probably one of the very first cartoon strips that I ever wrote or read, and you are the creator of that. How you doing, Lynn?
I'm doing great, thank you.
35 years for Better for Worse.
It was a great job. It's still a great job. I'm still adding to it and playing with it and enjoying the response. It's been a great career.
That's fantastic. Now you had a 20-year contract when you started?
It began with a 20-year contract, and it was a long contract and a heavy-duty one. And I learned a lot about contracts and what they have in them. So if you get a contract, don't go to your regular lawyer. Go to somebody who understands this kind of thing, right? So, but you know, I was very lucky to be with a really good syndicate. It was a family-oriented bunch of people, starting with a religious publishing company. And they discovered that comics was probably going to get them more established in the newspapers than the religious part of their work. So they went into comics strictly. And I was one of their first, well, I was the second woman cartoonist, but really they had very few when I started. But they had Doonesbury and Kathy Guise-White, and they, you know, they really had and Herman, you know, and they eventually had Calvin and Hobbes, and eventually many people joined them. So I was with a great group of people, got to meet all my heroes, and traveled a lot.
Now, tell us about the cartoon strip. It was now, I was listening to your interview this morning that you did with Lisa Lacko on the CBC, and you talked a lot about the characters and the children and the names of the children are your children's middle names.
Right. Well, you know, if you base something on your family, even, you know, this character sort of looked like the family, but you have to be considerate of their, you know, the children especially. And Kathy Guise-White, who did the strip Kathy, said don't call anybody by their real name because it really does affect your life. So I had everybody's second name. My son's name is Aaron Michael, and my daughter was Catherine Elizabeth, and my husband's first name was Rod, so I used John for his name. But Ellie was named for a friend of mine in grade 7 who died of a brain tumor, and I always wanted to remember her in a really special way. So Ellie Patterson was named for Ellie Jansen.
So this cartoon strip has a really close place in your heart. Now, you mentioned in an interview earlier that it was kind of hard on your kids, and I thought to myself, in what way? What way was that hard?
Well, you know, for example, when Michael meets a little girl at school or at summer camp called Martha, and the two of them flirt and all that type of thing, Aaron would come home and say, I'm sick of people asking me if I have a girlfriend called Martha. And so, but things like, you know, really serious stories like, you know, teenage angst and zits and relationships, and I would say, what can I do? What would you suggest? So he said, well, you haven't done anything about zits. And he said, I'm covered with them. And I said, well, I didn't want to do anything that personal. And he said, but you got to. So once I had their permission, one of the best stories I ever did for the kids was about Michael getting a zit on the end of his nose and not going to the dance, and he pairs his girl with his buddy, and the two of them become pals, you know, so he loses his girl to Gordon because he doesn't go to the dance. And, you know, things like that I had to, once certainly my kids became older and really aware of their relationships with friends and their looks in the mirror, I had to ask them a lot, what is this going to do? Can I use this material or not? So I had the approval of all my family, really.
And you actually, instead of a lot of cartoon strips, the characters stay the same age. You actually developed the characters as they got older.
Yeah, they had to get older because, I mean, I would be doing something and then my kids who were 3 years older than the characters in the strip, I would say, well, wow, that's exciting. I can't deny myself the use of that material. So I would age the kids a little bit more and then age them a little bit more in the strip because it was exciting and new and different and usable. And I had a deadline to keep, so I finally realized I needed another baby because I also needed that goofiness of learning how to speak the language and falling over and, you know, eating the dog food. So, and I was thinking, but I don't have a third kid. So I was talking to Kathy Guise-White on the phone, and she said, well, make one up. You don't have to be a real kid. And I thought, that's a great idea. But the funny thing is that Ellie got pregnant, I was so in tune with what I was doing. I started gaining weight, I started feeling weird, you know, and I started feeling pregnant, and it's amazing how warping a job like this can be, you know. But I know somebody who's let's say a vampire on television has to kind of wind out of that, so when they go home to their family, they're not wanting to chew anybody's neck, you know. They just, I'm dad now.
Now, we're running out of time here, but we would just want to let our viewers know, what are you doing here in town?
I am here most fortunately because the Thunder Bay Gallery is showing my exhibit. It's early, and I've had coffee, but the comic art of me, and it's a lot of my work, right from when I was 10 years old all the way around to the fabric designs we're doing now. So you can see how the strip evolved. There's mistakes, there's whiteout, there's bits and pieces. So anybody who's into comic art or drawing now can see that it's not a perfect science. It doesn't come off the pen onto the paper perfectly. So it's interesting and it's fun, and there's drawings from the medical school days, and because I was a medical artist for a while too, and yeah, quite a bit of stuff.
Now we're going to wrap up here, but one quick bit of advice for all those. I know there's a lot of comic artists in town. Do you have any advice for those guys?
Stay away from manga. Do it a little bit, but dump it because it's poisonous and it'll kill your talent.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much, Lynn. It was a pleasure meeting you. Excellent. So head on down to the Thunder Bay Art Gallery and check out the comic art of Lynn Johnston. Keep watching Go on Shaw TV.